For as long as people have called this place home, they've been welcomed with clean air, clean water, and an abundance of nature. As time went on, people saw the need to balance how we build cities with how we protect farms and forests. That's why across Greater Portland, in 24 cities and 3 counties, there's one metro government that brings us all together to maintain that vital balance, to provide services across cities and counties, to create a better future together. Hello, we're Metro. We plan for housing, jobs, and safe transportation. We protect land, air, and water by managing garbage and recycling. We support arts and culture by overseeing local venues to keep the economy growing. And we connect people to nature across 17,000 acres of parks and trails and at the Oregon Zoo. Metro is all of us working together, connecting how we live today with how we plan for the future. Hello, we're Metro, and so are you.
Good morning. It is March 16th, 2 days after Pi Day, 1 day after the Ides of March, and I'm calling our Metro Council meeting to order. March 16th, 2023. We have a quorum, and Connor Ayers, our clerk, will call the roll.
Thank you, Deputy Council President Lewis. Councilor Simpson.
Present.
Councilor Rosenthal.
Present.
Councilor Wong.
Present.
Councilor Gonzalez.
Present, and good morning.
Morning. Councilor Nolan and President Peterson are both excused today. And Deputy Council President Lewis.
Present. And before we begin the agenda, can we please play the safety video?
For as long as people have called this place home, they've been welcomed with...
I'm Micah Reese, and I'm the Dive Safety Officer here at the Oregon Zoo, and safety is a big part of my job. Some of the things we consider here is diver safety. I'm out here at the Oregon Zoo, and you're at the Metro Regional Center. The council chamber is located on the 3rd floor of this building. In the event of fire or fire alarm, please exit through the door in the northeast corner of the room, go down the steps to the 2nd floor, and exit through the main entrance by the reception desk and gather in the courtyard outside the entrance. In the event of a medical or fire emergency, please call 911 and notify the security agent at the front desk. The nearest defibrillator is mounted on the steps leading from the reception desk down to Grand Avenue. Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. So first item on our agenda is public communication. I'm going to open public communication by asking our clerk to please describe for everyone in attendance how we conduct the communication portion of the meetings.
Thank you, Deputy Council President Lewis. So if anyone wishes to testify on non-agenda items, now is the time to do so. Public testimony will be limited to 3 minutes, and we'll be managing a timer to go off at the 3-minute mark. If you have not already signed up to speak, you can do so now. If you are joining us in person, you can fill out one of the blue cards on the back of the room and bring that up to me. If you're joining us on Zoom, you can sign up by hitting the raise hand button. Depending on your version of Zoom, the raise hand button is within the reactions tab or along the bottom of your screen. And if you're dialing in, you can raise your hand by dialing *9. So with that, councilors, we have not had anybody sign up in advance to speak today. There was a little bit of written testimony that was distributed to you earlier this week. Well, with that, I'll just give folks another second or two to hit the raise hand button. Okay, and no hands have gone up, Deputy Council President Lewis.
Okay, thank you. I will close our public communication. Moving forward, the next item on our agenda is the consent agenda. We have 7 items. 3.1, consideration of June 23, 2022. That was a minute ago. Minutes. 3.2, consideration of June 30, 2022 minutes. 3.3, consideration of July 19, 2022 minutes. 3.4, consideration of July 21, 2022 minutes. 3.5, consideration of August 4, 2022 minutes. 3.6, consideration of September 15, 2022 minutes. 3.7, consideration of October 13, 2022 minutes. Could I please have a motion on the consent agenda?
I will move to adopt the consent agenda.
So motion is for consent agenda is moved by Counselor Rosenthal. Is there a second?
So moved.
Moved and then seconded by Counselor Simpson. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, nay? And unanimous support of our consent agenda consisting of 7 pieces of minutes. I'll move us along in our agenda to section 4, which is our resolutions. And first up today, we have resolution 235311 for the purpose of amending the fiscal year 22-23 budget and appropriation schedule and 22-23 through 26-27 CIP to provide changes to operations. Cinnamon Williams, our financial planning director, and Patrick Dennis, our budget coordinator, are here to present. Or they're not here. Are they on the phone?
They are
I
here
am-
virtually.
Oh, there we are.
Good morning, Deputy Council President Lewis. Cinnamon Williams, yes, she, her pronouns. I am the financial planning director. I will tell you that I apologize not being in there in person. I am very sick. So is Patrick, so he will not be here. So I didn't want to be a super spreader at the MRC building. So we're doing this virtually, and Marisa is going to help out here. So could we move to the next slide, please? Big picture. So this is a budget amendment and a capital improvement plan amendments. This is very small in comparison to prior amendments that have been forth you. So it should be a pretty quick presentation. Marisa will go over the personnel services increases to the general fund, and I'll go over some FTE changes, fund level appropriation, and the capital improvement plan amendments. But again, this will be pretty quick, and I will hand it over to our COO. Thank you, Marisa.
Thank you, Cinnamon. Good morning, Deputy President Lewis and counselors. Can we go forward one slide? So, as Cinnamon mentioned, we need to transfer roughly $1 million from the general fund contingency to cover cost of living increases. As you recall, this is the additional COLA that was bargained last summer due to record high inflation. For the same reason, we're also transferring $10,000 to the risk fund. That amount covers COLA changes for the 3 staff who are on the risk team. For additional context, we do budget the general fund very conservatively, as these are the agency's only unrestricted resources. So happy to answer any questions about that. Otherwise, I will hand it back to Cinnamon.
Great, thank you. Colleagues, questions? Counselor Rosenthal.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions, just sort of technical. One, and maybe it's a little premature on this. One thing I noticed, for example, in the FTEs, there's additional FTEs to the SHS funding, yet the transfer from contingency is not at the level that would support more than 1 FTE. So I'm just puzzled about that. And then, of course, I'm puzzled about the $2 item that shows up on the budget list. There's just a $2 item that comes out of contingency, and I'm just sort of wondering why we have a $2 item. That's sort of a puzzle. And then I guess my third question is, I noticed that there was $190,000 for the zoo foundation, and I assume we don't have a contingency in there, so that has to come from general fund revenues, and that's why that is shown as an addition to the budget. Is that correct?
Well, I think what we should do is, because those questions I think could maybe addressed in Cinnamon's presentation, if we could have Cinnamon complete the sort of overview.
Oh, sure,
And then,
sure.
if those questions are still outstanding, we can hit them.
Yes, next slide, please. Those are good.
Hold on, we've got a question from Counselor Wong.
Oh, yeah, thank you. Just a quick clarification. What's the difference between the contingency and the risk fund?
So the risk fund is a special fund that pays for our insurance. It pays for employees who are doing risk-related activities. Brian Kennedy, our CFO, is here too if you have additional questions. But then we have different contingency buckets across the organization. The general fund contingency is kind of our reserve for our most flexible funds. Then for our other funds that are more restricted, like the solid waste fund or other enterprise funds, they have their own contingencies. So I don't feel like I'm explaining this very well, but there isn't just one contingency. There's different contingencies for each special fund that we have at Metro because there are so many restricted funds that we operate from. Our general fund is relatively small compared to, say, the city of Portland or Multnomah County. And so it's important that we set our reserves and our contingency there conservatively because it's precious. But we don't just rely on that general fund contingency to back up our spending. We have contingency funds and reserves in all of our other funds as well.
And why is the risk fund being used to cover COLA increases for some staff and then contingency for the rest of us?
Because the risk fund is restricted. It can only be used to fund risk activities, including the costs for employees that are engaging in risk activities. And so it's appropriate to use, and I see, thank you. It's appropriate to use risk funds to cover the increased costs of those employees, which is the COLA. And then for the other employees, it's more appropriate to use general fund.
Thank you, Marisa. Councilor Wong, Deputy Council President Lewis. The risk fund describes a piece of our organization. So when you hear risk fund, you might think the risk management fund for the entire agency, but it actually describes the Metro Risk and Safety Program. And that risk and safety program is comprised of 3 FTE. And so it's a small fund that basically captures those 3 FTE plus our insurance costs, costs associated with administering our various property and liability insurance. And so because it's a small fund, we need additional appropriation to cover that cost of living increase in that fund for those 3 individuals. The rest of our funds, the COLA increase ran across the entire agency, but in many of our larger funds, like the Solid Waste Fund, the Merck Venues Fund, they're pretty large. They have salary savings from vacancies, so they didn't need additional appropriation. But in the places where we budget more tightly, like in the general fund, like in the risk fund, we need this budget adjustment to recognize that additional cost. The other funds are able to cover it based on their appropriation that was previously approved with the fiscal year 2022-23 budget.
Thank you, Brian. And can you say your full name and title for the record?
Sorry, Brian Kennedy, he, him pronouns, Chief Financial Officer.
Thank you for the education.
Great. So let's keep moving forward in the presentation. Please, Cinnamon.
Sure, absolutely. And good questions, Councilor Rosenthal. And I will answer all of them through my presentation, I promise. So we do have some FTE requests for housing and basically I would say it's housing. That FRS position is also in association with housing. So there's kind of five positions that are being requested for the housing positions. And then we have 1 for Parks and Nature and 1 limited duration position that HR would like to convert to regular status. Next slide, please. So the FTE request, this housing position, we have 1 program supervisor, 2 program coordinators for event tech and event and tech assistants and 1 administrative specialist. And we also, you'll see in a future slide for FRS, we have $116,000 that's going to be transferred out of the contingency to pay for these funds. And the reason why that is a small amount, Councilor Rosenthal and the rest of the councilors, is because it's partial year. With likelihood of them getting in, we want to get they want to probably will get hired by like maybe mid-April or early May. And so we're talking about 2 months worth of actual salary costs for those positions that we're asking for. So that's why the amount is smaller than you would expect for a whole annual position. So the full impact of those FTE you will see in the proposed budget that are accompanying in that. So hopefully that answers that question for you, but that is a really good one. Parks and Nature is asking for a program analyst to support the strategic planning and the data analysis for the Parks and Nature operating team. And that will be paid for out of the Parks and Nature operating fund, but they will use budget savings to cover for the couple of months that they have left in the fiscal year. They'll use Parks and Nature operating fund savings to pay for that position. Next slide, please. So like I said earlier, Finance and Regulatory Services, FRS, our department, is asking for a program manager for a tax compliance program manager for help for tax support. This is in collection and et cetera, the additional resources are needed for this. Will be paid for out of the Supportive Housing Services Fund is in the same 116 that was planning on being transferred over. And then Human Resources, again, is asking for a program analyst that's in their pay equity team that they would like to make a permanent position. It is expiring 6/30/24, but they have an employee in it and they want to give them the assurity that this position will continue because the work is continuing. Next slide, please. So the $2, so this is actually the net total appropriation change for the fund. If you want to see the actual itemized by budget category, definitely take a look at your Exhibit A. But this $2, I know it seems kind of odd. Like, why do we have $2 here? This $2 is because our budget software, Questica, we estimate personnel costs, and there's a rounding error in that $2, and it doesn't matter if it's $1 or $2, we have to come to you to ask for additional $2 to bank the fund balance. And so that's where that $2 came from. It came from the rounding issues associated with November's amendment. And then Oregon Zoo's Asset Management Fund is increasing their appropriation by $190,000. That is from a donation from the Zoo Foundation for their capital needs, and they are going to execute those. So yes, they did not have any contingency. They put all their resources in a capital outlay with anticipation that they could hopefully get some additional resources to pay for the projects they have. So that's why we have the extra $190,000 is from the Zoo Foundation. Next slide, please. All right, so big picture, when I really want to talk about the capital improvement plan, this is for capital improvement plan from FY23 through FY27. This is a 5-year plan. At this stage of the year, this plan that has been adopted by council that was started at this fiscal year is already 18 months old. So this is just normal course of business. There's often lots of capital improvement plan changes at this stage of the year. And so I will go through them by each department. But just as a quick reference, if you want more details about that, you have attachments 1 through 6 for each one of these departments, and I'll give you more of a detailed itemized list of what they're actually moving around throughout the years for that 5 years. And I will just rattle them off really quick. This is much more detailed than we usually give you on capital improvement plans, but we thought this was a good opportunity to sort of run through it. So capital asset management, attachment 1, which has the detail. They don't have any appropriation changes. They just want to move some projects around. And they did have one new project for their MRC stormwater, but they're changing projects around at that point. Oregon Convention Center, that's attachment 2. They so the venues obviously were kind of 18 months ago are looking at a different perspective than they are right now, and so they were budgeted their CIP pretty conservatively. Just didn't know what this year would look like. Now that they have much surer footing, they are actually moving forward with some capital. So they're actually moving $1.4 million from contingency into capital outlay to fund 4 new projects in safety and IT and equipment replacement, and 7 changes to existing projects. Some reductions because they didn't need it, moving it around, and again, moving money across the 5 years. Next slide, please. So Portland 5, sort of same story. They are moving $545,000 from contingency to capital outlay to pay for 4 new projects for stage systems and equipment, and 6 changes to existing projects. Increases timelines, and it's attachment 3 for the more detail on that. Parks and Nature, attachment 4. Parks and Nature has a large capital improvement plan. They don't have any appropriation change, but they have some large scale projects for the parks operations teams that have moved due to realignment of where scoping is for specific projects. So they have some pretty significant changes on theirs. This is 14 project changes with various funding sources. We're talking about the 2019 bond, Parks and Nature operating fund, et cetera. And so there we did a big realignment. And so there's across the 5 years, they did have a creation of a new ADA phase 2 project there, and that is in FY24. So all that detail is in attachment 4. And next slide, please. Prevention Environmental Services, again, no appropriation change. They did a realignment as well with their capital improvement plan. They have 6 new projects for land, station projects, paint, roof infrastructure, and 7 changes to existing projects, some reductions, some increases, and then Oregon Zoo, attachment 6, budget appropriation increase of $990,000 to capital to utilize those zoo foundation funds. And then again, like I said, they had a lot of money in capital outlay that hadn't been specifically identified for projects. So you'll see increases to 3 existing projects in their CIP. Next slide, please. So that's it. That is the budget amendment. All finance managers and department directors are available either virtually or in person to answer any questions you may have. And Patrick Dennis is sick as well, but if you have a technical question, and we can always get back to you. Deputy Council President, I will hand it over to you.
Wonderful, thank you. Continuing on, any questions on the second part of that presentation? Cinnamon, you did a great job. We have no questions.
Thank you.
Oh, Counselor.
I did have a question for the convention center. I saw there was new funding for IT and equipment replacement, and I was wondering if there might be some more explanation on that. I thought I understood that we were potentially outsourcing some of the IT work, and that we would not be doing IT equipment purchases in-house.
I think Will should be able to come up and answer your questions.
Yes,
Yeah. Could you please introduce yourself and then answer the question?
sure. Will Norris, Finance Manager for the Merck Visitor Venues. Deputy Council President Lewis, councilors. I think you're referring to the network head-in system infrastructure upgrade. And this is to update some end-of-life and failing amplifiers, digital signal processors, and network switches for 2 AV head-in rooms. And I don't know exactly how this interacts with the contracting, but I do know that we will need to have infrastructure built into the building going forward. But I can get more information to you.
No, that's helpful, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for that answer. Colleagues, any other questions? Okay, I'm not seeing any. I'd like to give particular thanks to Housing for bringing forward their package of staff needs in real time. That was a budget note, and we don't have any time to waste on meeting our needs. So thanks for that team coming forward as quickly as they could identify the needs. So seeing that we are wrapping up questions, I would ask for a motion on 235311.
I will move to adopt resolution 5111?
5311.
5311.
Wonderful. Counselor Rosenthal moves our resolution 235311. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Counselor Simpson. Could we please call, well, I guess there's still opportunity for discussion. Seeing none, I'll ask, we do a roll call of the vote, please.
Thank you. Counselor Gonzalez.
Aye.
Counselor Wong.
Yes.
Counselor Rosenthal.
Yes?
Counselor Simpson.
Aye.
And Deputy Council President Lewis.
Aye. Our resolution passes with unanimous support. Thank you to the entire finance team for all that good work and the clear presentation, and to the departments for doing all the work to come.
Thank you.
McCall appreciates it as well. So let's move on in our agenda. We have our next resolution, which is 235306, for the purpose of endorsing the preferred alternative for the earthquake-ready Burnside Bridge project. We last discussed this project in May of 2022, and since then, staff have been continuing design efforts and submitted the construction phase of the project as part of the 23 RTP call for projects. The project's preferred alternative, which is being recommended by staff today for adoption, was endorsed by JPAC last month on February 16th, 2023. So today with us, Alex Orshak, our Senior Transportation Planner, is joined by Multnomah County staff, Megan Neal from Engineering Services, and Government Relations Associate Taylor Steenbach will also be here for a resolution.
Thank you, Deputy President. Taylor, Megan, why don't you kick it off?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Taylor Steenblock. My pronouns are she, her. I'm here from Multnomah County's Government Relations Office, handling state and regional affairs, and also a member of the leadership team for the Earthquake Ready Burnside Bridge project. And today I have Megan with me. I'll let her introduce herself as well.
Good morning, Council. My name is Megan Neal. I'm an Engineering Services Manager in the Transportation Department of Multnomah County, and I'm also the county's project manager for the Earthquake Ready Burnside Bridge project.
And I think we're ready for the next slide. Great, so just kind of an agenda, what we'll be talking about today. First of all, we'll discuss the project purpose and need, a little bit more about regional resiliency and our region's needs in this area. Then we'll move on to some of the assessments we've done around the project benefits. We've got some interesting economic data to share with you today, as well as just the general positive impact to the region for a project of this size. Then we'll move on to discussing the major event of today, the locally preferred alternative. Megan will go a little bit more into the project timeline as well, and then we'll go on to the resolution sequence and the discussion. Next slide.
So first off, I just wanted to start off with reminding everyone why the county is making this our top priority transportation project in the next 15 years. Up on the screen, I wanted to highlight how the Burnside Bridge is in the center of Portland along what not many people know is the Burnside Corridor, which is one of our region's identified emergency transportation routes. It's a really key route. It extends 19 miles all the way from Washington County to Gresham. So it really connects our region, especially over the Willamette River, in terms of providing a route for our emergency responders to use after major events and natural disasters. I also wanted to highlight that the Burnside Corridor is actually one of our most resilient emergency transportation routes in the network that actually Metro has identified. Up on the screen, all the blue routes represent those identified emergency transportation routes. There are dots in red and green that represent seismically vulnerable bridges and overpasses along those routes, many of which would collapse after a major earthquake and render those routes unusable. And the Burnside Corridor actually has very few red dots along it. So in terms of the county selecting one bridge that it wants to invest our public funds in for the next 15 years, this is really why we have selected the Burnside Bridge to be that investment. Next slide, please.
So, and I did just want to reiterate, we don't currently have a bridge in downtown Portland that would be usable immediately after an earthquake. So what this means for not just the city of Portland, but our whole region is that if somebody crosses that bridge every day, either if it's because they have childcare on one side and live on the other, or they need to commute to work or school, that would mean that we wouldn't have a bridge after that earthquake to use to get to our loved ones and get to home and get to the services and the resources we need. So we're really leading with seismic resiliency as our main, not just our only, but our highest priority in this project because of that current risk factor. And as you can see, there are some statistics up here on our slide today. We have been engaging heavily with the business community as well as many other bike ped and transit communities to try and make sure that this project addresses a lot of those vulnerabilities that our region sees right now. And we've had really great and active engagement with those folks because I think everyone in our region has recognized that seismic resiliency is something that we have a lot of work to achieve and to accomplish, and this bridge would be a really important step working in that direction. Next slide.
So we've really identified the purpose of the Earthquake Ready Burnside Bridge project to enforce three key themes. First of all, this, as Taylor mentioned, we really don't have a seismically resilient bridge across the Willamette right now. So this bridge is going to be that seismically resilient link and provide our emergency responders with the ability to cross the river, get goods and services to where they're needed, and getting people to hospitals to get their needs taken care of. And then the 1, 3, 5 years following a major earthquake, this bridge will serve as a key tool to help our region recover and rebuild. We will need to clear a massive amount of debris from downtown. We will want to bring people back to downtown and get back to work and continue to preserve the tax base for the overall state. And then finally, this bridge is almost 100 years old. It was built in 1926. We're looking for this bridge to continue to serve its region for another 100 years. So we're looking to create a long-term multimodal transportation facility that we can rely on for the next 100 years. Next slide, please.
Great, so here's some of that data I was talking about. We've done some analysis based partly on other projects that were major projects the county has implemented, such as the courthouse or the Selwood Bridge project. But we've also done some modeling with other information pulled through some specialists that we've worked with on this project. So you can kind of see in front of you what this project would mean, not just for Multnomah County, but for our region. There are economic benefits, including employment, but also potential additional revenue raising for both, or for Washington County, for Multnomah County, and for Clackamas County. And actually, when we did some analysis statewide, this also did have somewhat of a return on investment for the state should they choose to invest in this project as well. So I know we've gotten some questions about a potential recession coming our way. I think just speaking from what I've seen in the legislature, it seems like potentially we've managed to curb a lot of that potential, but the possibility is still very much there. And so we just wanted to make everyone aware that a project of this magnitude has the potential to have major return for our region and for our state. Next slide.
So I just want to touch on a few of the highlights of the preferred alternative that we're here today to seek approval for. Up on the screen are a few renderings of the types of structures we'll be exploring in the design phase. I just wanted to highlight some of the key resiliency components of the structure. We're actually creating a seismic design criteria that exceeds the current code. It'll be the most stringent seismic design criteria of any structure in Oregon, and this criteria was vetted thoroughly with a technical working group comprised of local and national experts in the field. The earthquake that this bridge will be designed for will be the largest in North America, 10 times the magnitude of the earthquake that Turkey experienced recently. And finally, we're very excited to ensure the foundations are going to be able to withstand a major Cascadia subduction earthquake. Not only will we be replacing the shallow timber piles with robust drilled shafts that go down upwards of 120 feet into the ground. We'll also be eliminating any foundations in the highly liquefiable soils on the east bank of the river there. That does result in a very long span over the freeway, which results in some of the larger structure types you see on the screen. On the next slide, I just wanted to touch on the cross-section that we've landed on in our preferred alternative. We did do some cost reduction exercises last year, which resulted in a proposal of removing one vehicular lane from the bridge. So on the screen, you see a cross-section that includes just 4 lanes of traffic versus the 5 that are out there today. But I just wanted to highlight how this cross-section continues to serve our region's future transportation needs. While we are preserving the existing eastbound bus-only lane, we are creating an option to implement a westbound bus-only lane should our region need that in the future, as well as implementing streetcar on the bridge. We'll be designing the bridge to support those loads should this region desire that to cross the bridge in the future. And to encourage cycling and walking on this bridge, we'll be adding a physical barrier between our multi-use path and vehicular traffic just to kind of increase that sense of security and safety across the bridge. We are looking to construct somewhere between a 14 to 17 foot multi-use path, and 14 feet would meet the maximum width multi-use path that's out there on any bridge today. On the Tillicum structure, so we'll be at least meeting the current standards that are out there in downtown today. Next slide.
So just a little bit on our funding process. This slide has a couple of different points of information to note. First of all, we have currently funded this project up to $300 million, and a large component of that is actually not just county funding, but also local funding in general. We've used our vehicle registration fee dollars to get us to this point, and just a shout out and lots of gratitude for our local governments, our cities that were willing to forego their portion of that vehicle registration fee to put towards our bridge construction. So that means that we have roughly $600 million to go in terms of funding our bridge. And while that does feel like a lot of money, I just want to note that as we are coming to the age of major projects in the region, we're noting that many projects are sort of in this funding predicament. And so we're doing our best to coordinate with the Interstate 5 Bridge, with Rose Corridor, with 205, with all of these other projects in our region that will all be uniquely important to creating a more resilient system. So with that said, to fill that final funding gap, we're seeking many different ways to fund this. We're looking for additional state funding. We're looking for federal funding through the form of grants. We're also looking for other ways that we might be able to raise some of this revenue locally in a way that doesn't necessarily put a burden on one specific group of people, because we recognize that these bridges that we operate are all assets countywide. And for the state too, as well, especially when talking about resiliency. So we will be beginning the design phase relatively soon. We're funded all the way through design, and then we'll be working hard to fund the rest of the bridge as we get closer to construction. Next slide.
Good morning, councilors. Alex Orshak, Senior Transportation Planner with Metro. I use he, him pronouns. The request before you today is adoption of a resolution endorsing the project's preferred alternative. This resolution was recommended by TPAC in January and by JPAC last month on February 16th. Next slide, please. And we just wanted to close by putting the resolution number and title in the packet. The full text of the resolution is in your packet. Resolution number 23-5306 for the purpose of endorsing the preferred alternative for the earthquake-ready Burnside Bridge project. And we'd be happy to answer any questions at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Colleagues, please use your little hand in the Zoom. Councilor Gonzalez, first question.
Deputy President Lewis, thank you for the opportunity to share some thoughts. I just want to thank the project team. We had a very good conversation at JPAC and folks expressing support for the project, and as well asking some good questions. It's great to see this coming to council, and appreciate the hard work between both the city of Portland and Multnomah County to help this project work through some of the issues that had not yet been answered. And I feel confident about their direction. I just wanted to share those thoughts. Thank you.
Wonderful. Councilor Rosenthal.
Thank you, Interim Chair Lewis. A couple comments and a couple sort of embedded questions. Well, first, one of the questions is, are neither the Tillicum nor the Selwood Bridge considered seismically resilient? And then I guess a technical, well, I have a comment. I mean, one of the things your slides points out is the number of bridges we have that are not seismically resilient. It shows there's a lot of work to do. The Burnside Bridge is going to have to carry a heavy load. So my second technical question would be, in case of emergency, are the pedestrian or bicycle lanes convertible to emergency vehicle usage, such that, I mean, there could be, as you know, earthquakes tend to hit in particular pockets, and there could be like a great deal of destruction right downtown. So there may be a lot of traffic flow out. Can those be used in a reversible or a multi-phase use? And then my other question, a little bit tongue-in-cheek, is I look at the chart and I see 2 lanes of traffic coming in and 1 lane of bus going out. So are the extra cars going to be converted into buses so they can be shipped out? That traffic configuration, I'm not on JPAC, so I don't know the explanation for that.
Deputy Council President Lewis and Councilor Rosenthal, thanks for those questions. All questions we anticipated coming up. So if I forget one of them or I don't answer it fully, please feel free to correct me. But I think the first thing that you were asking is, do we have other seismically resilient bridges downtown? The answer is that the Tillicum Bridge itself is seismically resilient. The challenge is that the embankments leading up to and down from the bridge are not. So while that bridge can withstand an earthquake, the key word in what we were saying on that slide is that it won't be immediately usable after an earthquake because we will have to rebuild access to that bridge, and that should take roughly a month or so. And then the other bridge that was mentioned, I believe, was Sellwood, and the Sellwood Bridge is not downtown. So this is the other key piece, is that we want to make sure downtown has access to a bridge. The Sellwood Bridge is also potentially in front of a landslide risk zone. So what we've done is try to remediate as much of that area as we can to reduce the risk of a landslide, but there's always the potential that the road on the west side of the Sellwood Bridge wouldn't be usable immediately either, because we might have to clear rubble from that West Hills hillside there that could potentially slide down. So that's why we have prioritized Burnside, is because it has so few of those risk factors relative to Sellwood, and it is located downtown, and we plan not to allow the lead up and the exit from the bridge to be anything but fully seismically resilient. And then I believe another question that you'd asked is relating to the traffic lanes and the pattern for the buses. So a lot of the modeling that we did with PBOT, and I think Megan can speak a little more to the modeling specifics, but what we are trying to do is balance the need on this bridge to make sure that it serves multimodal, transit, and cars. And we think that as we move ahead and look to the future, we will see fewer single occupancy vehicles on this bridge. So looking ahead and recognizing that, what we are trying to do is accommodate for people to use the bus as a form of relieving congestion downtown. And so that's why we felt it was so important to have a bus rapid transit lane exiting downtown down to the east side. And then, I think the final question that you had asked is, can we utilize the bike paths for emergency responders in the event of an earthquake? And a lot of those questions could be answered in design, which we haven't entered into yet. So part of that might depend on the weight load for those bike lanes and the paths and the width of the paths. It also might depend how the barrier is built. So if we build the barrier in a way that it can be moved, or in a way that you could potentially drive around it, that could be an idea we could certainly consider in design, but we don't have those issues or those answers for you right now, because the only thing that we're asking for your approval for today are the fact that we're going to replace the bridge, that it will be a long span bridge, and that we'll use the girder and a bascule lift. So it's very, very high level today, and those much more complicated questions will be answered during the design process.
Thank you for that response.
Two more questions at least. Councilor Wong.
Thank you, Deputy President Lewis. And I have a couple questions. I think should be pretty quick. And thank you for the presentation. I remember going on the local investment team tour and really diving into this project. So I'm glad we're at this point. But I guess my first question, just real quickly on the bus lane, we're planning ahead for bus rapid transit. Would the bridge be able to accommodate kind of the new articulated buses in kind of the turning, just, because they're longer and heavier? Just want to make sure.
Deputy Council President Lewis, Councilor Wong, I think a lot of that again will be answered in the design phase, but I think our intention is to accommodate those, especially given that they'll be an important part of congestion management in the future.
Great. I noticed in the budget document that, the construction costs were all in a MPDG grant. That's a federal grant, I'm guessing? And then the construction contingency of $122.9 million was all held by the county. And I was wondering if you could say more of that. I mean, from our experience recently, all the construction projects on infrastructure have gone up substantially, and is the county ready to provide that contingency? And why isn't that more in the federal application?
Yeah. Okay, so I think your first question was around the grants that we're seeking. So there are several grants that have been renewed by the federal government, and then there are several large project grants that are new as a result of the federal transportation package. So we are currently seeking funding from all of those grants that we can possibly qualify for. MPDG is a repurposing, I guess, of two former grants, Infra and Mega. And so we have applied for both of those in the last cycle, and we will apply for those again in this cycle as well. There's also the Bridge Investment Program, which is the new piece of it from the infrastructure package. We applied for that last cycle, and we'll continue to apply for that as well. And then, we have a couple of other federal grants, such as the RAISE grant or the Bridge grant, and those like to be last mile funding. So we are likely to seek those again in the future, but for now, we're holding off just because with their limit being roughly $25 million a piece, it doesn't make sense for us to seek those just yet because of the amount of funding we still have that is unfunded currently for the project. And then in terms of the city taking on liability and how we plan to fund these things, we have a really fantastic in-house team, and we are also seeking some additional contractors to do financial strategy development for this process. And I think what we're learning is that there are a lot of federal programs, such as the TIFIA grant program, that allow us to be really creative in how we can take on the liability for this project. What I will say, though, is that given that it is a state and a regional asset, we are also seeking state investment for this project. We do have a bill in the legislature this session that would fund the bridge at an additional $300 million. We're working with ODOT, we're working with Hood River, we're working with Cascade Locks to figure out how all of these major bridge projects in the state can potentially seek some state investment as well. So, I think this is a county asset and it does need to be replaced, and ultimately it's our project. But whenever possible, we're trying to seek, some investment from other people so that the liability isn't solely our own.
Thank you. And then that contingency is just something that you would plan for in the future after? Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Thanks. And my last question, and you're probably not there yet, is, this council is really interested in our workforce equity goals. And I'm wondering if you have had initial conversations about how those community benefits and, our equity goals might be incorporated into the design process and construction.
Yeah. So another thing to note on this project is that we have worked really closely with the building trades. We have a project labor agreement for this project, and we've had really fantastic feedback from a lot of the potential people who will work on this project. We actually have a hearing for the Burnside Bridge in the legislature next week, and I'm really proud to say that we are a very, very high priority for people like the iron workers because of how wonderful we are in terms of our contracting and trying to work really hard to hire women and minority-owned firms, be it labor or open shop, and we very much work to go above and beyond whenever possible. I'm going to just put a little bit of a note here, though. Our construction timeline is 2025. That's also the construction timeline for Interstate 5 Bridge and for Rose Quarter and potentially for Phase 2 of 205. It's going to be a really competitive region, frankly, to attract the workforce for this work. So one of the major ways that the county can attract those kinds of workers is to work on these project labor agreements and to be really progressive in the way that we try to hire our workforce. So, I think right now we've been going through this process with the state where they've been modeling their project labor agreements after the one that Multnomah County created. And I think we're really trying to be a leader in this area and be, we don't want to be, we want to be very careful with the taxpayer dollar, but we also want to be really careful who has access to those jobs and that they have a good place to go to work every day as well.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Next question is from Councilor Simpson.
Thank you, Deputy President Lewis. Thank you all for your presentation. I may also share Councilor Wong's sentiment on this excitement. I was also on that local investment team. Just a quick question around that design for the multimodal pass. And I know that'll probably get answered in the design phase, but is there any talks of continuity on, outside of the bridge with PBOT and working with them to make sure, those, at least as far as it can go out and connect to a greenway, that conversation is happening. And then also, around, project labor agreements, those, making sure community is also involved in that through some sort of community benefits agreement.
Yes, Deputy Council President Ludis, Councilor Simpson, I just wanted to speak really quickly to how great it's been to work with PBOT. We actually have a 2-hour in-person meeting tomorrow with them to discuss this project, and it's one of several in a series. They have been engaging with us on this, and I know that the city has sort of a unique role in this, and that it is in the heart of their city as well as our county. So having said that, you know, there are certain aspects of the design phase that I think some folks would like to see advanced sooner, and we're trying to see whether it's possible that we can work through those differences, or not necessarily differences, but really the question of how we approach design. So the multi-use path is one of those, and it's why we put that range on the slide from 14 to 17 feet. I think we would love to see as wide of a multi-use path as possible, because it is really important to us to see this serve bikes and pedestrians and anyone who needs to roll or walk across the bridge. It also is true that we need to make sure that transit can utilize the lanes on the bridge and emergency responders can utilize those as well. And so a big reason why we've been pushing this closer to design is because there might be ways that we can be creative about how we design, for example, the barrier between the cars and the multi-use path to take up less space. We might be able to, you know, get creative about how we balance bike and pedestrian use on the bridge and figure out how to maximize that space. There are a whole lot of very specialized engineering terms that I don't personally know very well, but that my colleague could speak to. But the point is that design is a complex process, and so we put the range there because aspirationally we'd like as much as possible, but in short, we don't want there to be any less space than the best case scenario out there now, which is Tillicum. So we've been working with PBOT. They've been really fantastic. And the design phase is definitely going to be a robust conversation.
And a quick follow-up, what does the community engagement process look like around that?
Yeah, so I'm actually going to turn it over to Megan, our project manager. She's been the one handling a lot of the community engagement work on this.
And thank you for the question, Deputy Council President Lewis and Councilor Simpson. I just wanted to ask a clarifying question in terms of community engagement. Are you referring to the Community Workforce Benefits Agreement or around the multi-use path?
Around the multi-use path and design.
Yeah, we have been working with a multimodal group throughout the entire environmental review phase that includes a number of representatives from the community on the transportation space to help identify the desires of the design and what to incorporate into our design criteria in regards to the multi-use path. For example, not only the width, but maybe like a rumble strip in between the two paths to help delineate the use. We're also talking about the idea of multi-directional use, how to make that safe, what paint colors will need to be utilized in order to, again, like make a clear use of the space and minimize conflicts. So those are some of the things we will be working on in the design phase.
Thank you.
Colleagues, any further questions? Okay, seeing no more hands, I have one of my own. Oh, buddy. So we obviously were able to hear from you last year. Here we have this pretty significant milestone with a locally preferred alternative. And next we'll see this bridge as part of the 23 RTP, and it's obviously at the top of y'all's suggestion for the constraint list. When do we see this bridge again? Do we see it at the end of design, or do we not see it until funding?
I can attempt to answer that.
Margie might come help.
Yeah, I think Margie would probably be the best one to answer that question. We're happy to come back if you'd like some updates.
Sorry, Margie.
Oh, that's okay. My instinct is to take baby McCall from you right now, but I'll try to answer the question. I know, all the mothers in the room. Anyway, back to the question. So we are a participating agency in the NEPA process. Capital P are the major role that we play is in the NEPA process, which is finalized when we vote on the LPA. So that's today. So that's a different role. So that role kind of ends when design and construction begins. Metro Council will then put on a different hat as the manager of both the RTP and the MTIP. So you will have this project in the RTP, as you noted. And then any federal funding that that Multnomah County is successful in pursuing or obtaining will have to come through our MTIP, so that will be in your future votes. But that will not be as a role of participating agency, that will be as the manager of the MTIP.
Got it. Thank you for that. That helps put it in context. This is not the last time we see this bridge. And hopefully we'll see it again quite soon with our RTP. With that, again, we're looking at 235306 as our resolution number. Do we have any motion?
I'll move approval. Counselor Gonzalez?
Thank you, Counselor. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Wonderful. So moved by Counselor Gonzalez, was second by Counselor Rosenthal. Any further discussion? Could we please take the roll?
Yes, thank you. Counselor Wong.
Yes.
Counselor Simpson.
Aye.
Counselor Gonzalez.
Aye.
Counselor Rosenthal.
Aye.
And Deputy Council President Lewis.
Aye. Unanimous support. This is a big deal. Thank you. Good work. Yay.
Thank you so much,
Thank you.
everyone. I really appreciate it.
And I saw that little applause over there, Counselor Simpson. I'm with you. You can celebrate. Find joy in the work. So let's move forward to the ordinance section of our agenda. First up is 5.1, ordinance 23-1490 for the purpose of annexing to the Metro District boundary approximately 6.58 acres located in Hillsborough to the west side of Southeast 67th Avenue North of Southeast General Rosa Street. As you recall, we had our first reading and a public hearing on this item on March 2nd. At that time, we received testimony about the proposed annexation, and staff gave a staff report explaining how the application satisfies the applicable review criteria. And today with us, we have our associate regional planner, Glenn Hamburg, who can answer any questions or refresh our memories about what we learned just 2 short weeks ago. Colleagues, are there questions or asks for clarifications? Councilor Rosenthal, I see you.
Deputy Council Lewis, I just have one question. I couldn't tell from the map exactly where this was located, which side of TV Highway? North or south?
South.
Okay.
Yep. So this is just on the west. I'm sorry, Glenn Hamburg, Associate Regional Planner. He, him pronouns. It's on the west side of 67th Avenue. Really just a pocket right there in the already developed area of the city of Hillsborough.
Okay.
And then, Carrie, our attorney, I just want to clarify, I stepped away because I had a child moment. I think you were doing the ex parte stuff, and I don't have ex parte, and I don't have any external communications on this project. Just to cover that from last time that I missed.
That's so long as you were, I'm sorry, I'm going to mute myself. So long as you were present to hear the evidence that was provided in the staff report, you can vote on this matter.
Okay, great, thank you. So is there a motion on this ordinance?
So moved.
And is there a second?
Seconded.
Wonderful. So ordinance 23-1490 was moved by Counselor Simpson with a second from Counselor Gonzalez. We have time now for further discussion, colleagues. Don't all speak at once? Okay. I will ask Connor, our clerk, to please call roll for the vote.
Thank you. Counselor Rosenthal.
Yay.
Counselor Gonzalez.
Aye.
Counselor Wong.
Aye.
Counselor Simpson.
Aye.
And Deputy Council President Lewis.
Aye. As I heard that, unanimous support for our measure. Thank you. Thank you to our planning team. Thank you, Glenn.
Yeah, tough questions. So.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So we have just a bit more in our agenda today, and I will ask our Chief Operating Officer, Marisa Madrigal, for our communication.
Thank you, Deputy Council President Lewis, and hello again, councilors. Just one quick item for you today. A reminder that there's a community planting at Chehalem Ridge from 10:30 to 1:30 on Saturday, March 18th, hosted by our fabulous Parks and Nature team. All ages are welcome, and tools and refreshments will be provided. It's a great opportunity to learn about planting native plants. So if you need something to do with family this weekend, you should check it out. Also, if you want to stop by one of our parks and enjoy the extra daylight, today we have free parking at Expo, Blue Lake, Broughton Beach, the James M. Gleason Memorial Boat Ramp, and Chinook Landing Marine Park. And that's all I have for you today.
Wonderful, thank you. Any questions for our COO? Great. Counselors, any counselor communication? Counselor Rosenthal.
Thank you, Interim Chair Lewis. Just one communication. I happened to attend the Regional League of Oregon Cities meeting in Wilsonville, which is in my district, yesterday. And two things that are interesting that were worth noting. One is that things have changed with the League of Oregon Cities. It's about split now between their desire to do lobbying and their desire for just coordination and networking, which has changed because we have a lot of new mayors and mayors of a lot more mayors of alternate gender. So that's one thing that's very important. Another thing that's I think is very important, and this came up a bit, is that a lot of smaller cities have trouble fulfilling some of their desires in terms of DEI training and keeping their staff, because it's an ongoing process. And so the League of Oregon Cities is going to develop a program so that they can provide assistance to smaller cities throughout the region to be able to maintain and update their DEI training, their sensitivity training, as necessary, and so that it doesn't fall through the cracks. As they pointed out, many of these cities spend about 80 to 90% of their budget on police and fire, and so they have very limited budgets for other things such as cultural awareness and so forth. So I thought that was pretty interesting.
Thank you for that report back. Counselor Gonzalez.
Thanks, Deputy President Lewis. Councilor Rosenthal and I continue our roadshow of the TV Highway Project, recently presenting to the city of Hillsborough, and this week, Washington County Commission, where we were able to join a work session and actually dive deeper into the project. And it was really wonderful to have Metro staff making the trip to have that. As you can imagine, a lot of the conversations are around local match in this really constrained, fiscal constrained environment, and how our local governments are working with their budgets. And so we're trying our best to be, optimistic, and also know that we can execute the project if we all agree on the outline. We did have JPAC this morning. We had a really fruitful discussion. We had a group of regional government affairs staff led by Annalise Kohler, our state lobbyist, our state affairs director. And we had conversations about some of the legislation. As you can imagine, the topic of tolling came up, and we had I would say pretty strong consensus between the non-state agencies, the municipal leaders, around how Metro, specifically within JPAC, how JPAC can speak with ODOT around the extension of the comment period from 60 to 90 days, so an additional 30 days. But in general, there was really the amplification of, and I want to be careful about how I say it, but Metro has been working with ODOT on this, in addition to the cities and the county in Clackamas, that we have a specific set of policy goals and agreements that we have set out with the creation of some committees and the rollout of policies. And as the deadlines swiftly approach, really wanting to see those aspirations be met and lived up to, and particularly a lot of the local issues that I know that many of you are hearing, and Councilor Lewis, you're living on a daily basis. So just wanted to give that sense of the conversation at JPAC, that conversation was had. And we also had a presentation on the Montgomery Park streetcar and development project happening in that part of the city. If I missed anything, Councilor Simpson, Councilor Lewis, if you want to chime in about what you felt in that meeting this morning, please do so. But that concludes my counselor communication.
Wonderful. Thank you for that summary. I think you did a really nice job. I think it's really important to underscore the reason, we had initially already put in a letter under Chair Peterson's signature requesting a full extension. The 15-day extension was granted, but in particular with the context of the RTAC meeting being canceled for this month, it's completely necessary for us to make a second run as recommended by JPAC at further extending the comment period, since the EA won't be open during a meeting of the RTAC. So that's just a little bit of additional context for that conversation. Councilor Simpson.
Thank you, Deputy Council President Lewis. And also I'll say, I think, Councilor Gonzalez summed it up really well, and I think as a council, we should revisit our agreement, our I-205 agreement, to make sure that things are being held up on the other side of that agreement. So, but I also want to share some good news. This Monday, Fuller Station opened. I went in the place of Councilor Lewis. I'm so sorry she was unwell. But that was a project that $10 million worth of Metro bond funds went towards, a total of 46.7. And it is 100 units with 25 going to deeply unaffordable families and children coming out of foster care. So, really happy to see that. Proud to have our partners be along with that, Clackamas County, as well as TriMet, with that development being right off of on TOD, or transit-oriented development, right off the green line there. So some good news this week to continue to share. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Simpson, and thank you in particular for covering at the last minute. I did not know I was so sick I couldn't go until about 4 hours before.
It's all right.
But what I hear is you did an excellent job representing Metro and a project that you had never been at before, so that's great. Colleagues, I just have one piece of councilor communication. Last week, I was able to attend a workshop presented by a network called Local Progress in Washington, D.C. I was there with about 50 other local, municipal, and school board member from across the country. And they are all facing some of the same things we are. And granted, their jurisdictions are all different sizes and different challenges, but came back with some tools I look forward to sharing, particularly around how we can work together as a council, but also work with our agency to make sure that some of the things that we know our communities need come to fruition, and we're building for the long term and not just the short-sighted kind of loops that our government systems are set up to reinforce. But making sure that we are deeply embedded in community when we're creating policy, co-creation, and other similar tools. So just wanted to report back on my attendance at that convening. Seeing no further discussion, I'm going to adjourn our meeting and remind everyone that our next regular meeting is scheduled for March 23rd, 2023, 10:30 a.m. See you all there. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Recording stopped.